Bolivia takes action to combat Amazon fires by contracting a plane capable of releasing more than 72,000 liters of water onto the blaze in one run. The Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez returns from Russia, hailing the two countries' relationship. And residents reject India's move to remove Jammu and Kashmir's semi-autonomous status. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Doris Polo. We begin in Bolivia, where a Boeing 747 supertanker has begun its first water discharge in Chiquitania to fight the more than 700,000 hectares of forest which have been consumed by fire. The aircraft is capable of transporting more than 72,000 liters of water as it heads for the Taperas community, an area covered by a very dense cloud of smoke. Vice President Alvaro Garcia Linera was at the Santa Cruz International Airport ahead of the supertanker's departure.
We must do all that is necessary. We must plan ahead in order to ensure that this type of event doesn't happen again, which is causing much pain for Bolivians, for the world, to both human beings and nature. If we need to invest a lot of financial resources, we will do so. We will be prepared in a much better manner in the years to come.
Our correspondent in La Paz, Freddy Morales, sent us this report.
The
Boeing 747 Supertanker plane arrived overnight in the city of Santa Cruz. It provided, during midday, its water holding capacity. It's capable of holding 160,000 liters. Around midday, it's beginning to operate in the Chiquitania region, in two fundamental provinces in the department of Santa Cruz, where authorities on overflights held yesterday and this morning. They have determined that there are a total of 5 communities where the fire has gotten intense in recent hours. And they have determined that this plane should begin working in the Taperas region in the Chiquitania. The Chiquitania is a region with lots of forests, named like Bosque Seco Chiquitano. It's an identification which was given by experts to a type of forest which exists in this region, and which they say is the only place in the world. The plane has begun to work in that area. Authorities have officially said that 774,000 hectares have been destroyed by these fires. This means that this week alone, the fires grew to scorch another 250,000 hectares, because at the start of the week, the number was just 500,000 hectares. This just gives you an idea of the magnitude of the fires and the magnitude of the path of this phenomena in this tropical region and Amazonian region of Bolivia. The official number of affected families is 1,900. 8 families have lost absolutely everything and are being assisted by the Bolivian government. There are more than 1,500 military personnel operating in the area, on the ground, and hundreds more personnel assisting in the extinguishing of the blaze. Health authorities have unraveled an operation to attend to people who have ocular problems due to the dense smoke, infections in the eyes, and other health problems caused by these fires.
That was Freddy Morales with that report. And as he just said, while the Bolivian government acts, the world is condemning the Brazilian government's response to the fires raging in the Amazon. Footage near Highway BR 319 on the edge of the rainforest in Puerto Velho shows the level of destruction. Over 50% of the nearly 73,000 fires in Brazil since January this year have occurred in the Amazon, representing an 80% increase compared to 2018. President Jair Bolsonaro's neoliberal policies have been cited as contributing to the growing problem. The Amazon fires are fueling protests in several cities around the world, with Brazil's president feeling the heat over his environmental policies which accelerate the Amazon's deforestation. There has been international condemnation and heightened calls for tough action to stem the unfolding crisis. Environmental groups are protesting in at least 15 countries. In the Spanish capital, Madrid, protesters said that the fires were a consequence of unbridled capitalism and called for the resignation of President Bolsonaro. Our correspondent, Eduardo Marin, has the details.
Hundreds of people have gathered in front of the Brazilian embassy in Madrid in the wealthy neighborhood of Chamberí. Several social and political movements gathered to chant "Bolsonaro resign" and it's not the fire, it's capitalism. They are demanding the end of the neoliberal policies of Brazil's far-right president, Jair Bolsonaro, who they blame for the destruction of the Amazon. They have also accused Bolsonaro of committing genocide against the global ecosystem. Protesters demand urgent action from the Brazilian government and the international community to put an end to these attacks against the environment. If their demands are not met, these organizations are threatening to continue protesting throughout September and October.
Now, one of the protests is being held in San Salvador. Our correspondent Ernesto Albaus reports.
Environmental and social organizations are holding a protest outside the Embassy of Brazil here in the capital of El Salvador. They're united in this worldwide protest, which comes as a response to the Amazon forest fires in South America. They're also demanding that President Jair Bolsonaro utilize all state apparatus in order to fight these fires, which amount to thousands throughout the South American Amazon. They're also denouncing Bolsonaro's role in the destruction, as he's conceded transnational companies and Brazilian companies which participate in this destruction of the rainforest, which undoubtedly affects all of humanity around the planet.
Demonstrators are also demanding immediate solutions to the Amazon fire at the Brazilian embassy in Colombia. Social organizations are also condemning the anti-environmental policies of the President Ivan Duque, as well as demanding measures to protect the Colombian Amazon. Our correspondent in Bogota, Paola Fernandez, is at the protest.
Social organizations representing indigenous communities, campesinos, and Afro-descendant people are protesting at the entrance of the Brazilian embassy to Colombia in Bogota. They're rejecting what's happening in the Amazon and not only demanding solutions from the Brazilian president, but also denouncing the anti-environmental policies of the Colombian president, Ivan Duque. They're demanding active measures to defend the Colombian Amazon as well as the people who defend the environment in Colombia from the effects of extraction industries and the policies of Ivan Duque here in the country.
And protests have also been taking place in the Ecuadorian capital, Quito. Demonstrators are denouncing the inaction of the Brazilian president, chanting, "There is no life without the Amazon." Still to come, the Public Services Association takes on the TNT Prime Minister with some choice words. You don't want to miss it.
Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transformed the world today. On Monday, only on Venezuela.
Welcome back. Upon her arrival from Russia, Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez said the meetings with Russian officials were successful and that Russia has reaffirmed its commitment to back Venezuela in the face of U.S. sanctions.
The meetings have been extraordinary. We had a meeting with Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Borisov, who is also co-president of the Russian-Venezuelan High-Level Intergovernmental Commission. From our side, we were represented by our economy minister. We reviewed in detail the cooperation agreements we share, and we made great progress in strengthening economic relations. Our Defense Minister General Padrino Lopez also discussed the possibility of further military cooperation with Russia. Next week, we are receiving Russian delegations to talk about other integral issues such as mining and agriculture. It's very important to stress that our alliance is based on mutual benefits, in which both President Putin and President Maduro are continuing the legacy of Commander Hugo Chavez. I also met with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who reaffirmed Russia's support for Venezuela. The alliance between these two countries is unprecedented, and they are both committed to defending the UN Charter on sovereignty, independence, and nations' right to self-determination. Towards achieving this aim, we also discussed joint strategies to defend multilateralism and human rights. Overall, it was a really successful meeting.
The Uruguayan government has issued a statement confirming the country's president Tabaré Vázquez has a malignant tumor in his lung. The 79-year-old former oncologist announced that doctors detected a likely malignant growth in his right lung during a routine checkup on Tuesday. According to the statement, his treatment would be determined after the results of ongoing medical tests. The defense team of Swedish digital privacy activist Ola Bini are denouncing that his rights are being violated in Ecuador. The activist's attorney Carlos Soria said that they do not understand the Ecuadorian prosecutor's office's intention in maintaining a case against Bini without any real evidence.
We don't know what their intention is, nor where they want this case to go. We don't know why they're criminalizing knowing someone and having friendships. What they should be doing is verifying whether a crime has been committed or not. Even the Telecommunications Corporation has said that there is no evidence of any unauthorized access at any time.
Teachers held a demonstration to condemn poor working conditions and demand better salaries and pensions in the Dominican Republic on Thursday. Our correspondent Daisy Toussaint has the details.
Hundreds of education professionals from across the country gathered for a demonstration called by the Teachers Association in Santo Domingo for what has been called the Great Educators' Protest. The teachers marched to the Education Ministry to demand equity between the salaries of teachers, an improvement in pensions for retired teachers, the payment of medical licenses, and better quality foods in schools, among other demands. They carried banners saying that without teachers, there is no education law, and they called for an end to extended school hours. They say that working additional hours has been exploitative. Teachers are demanding that the Education Ministry contract staff for additional afternoon hours. It's important to note that the school year began last Monday, and the Dominican Teachers Association called for the protest in front of the Education Ministry because the conditions are not acceptable to begin the academic calendar. The organization's president said that they had made the decision to take to the streets because they were left with no other choice after authorities ended the dialogue taking place.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the Public Services Association has slammed Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's criticism of public servants, whom he recently suggested were lazy. PSA President Watson Duke took to Facebook saying he was shocked and perturbed by Dr. Rowley's statement. He said what the Prime Minister is doing is blaming public servants for his own non-performance.
When I come across headlines in a daily newspaper that says PM knocks public servants who produce absolutely nothing but makes the most noise when pay is late, lazy loafers, it worries me. It worries all 80,000 public servants of this country, and it hurts us to the core. It says to that mother, that father, that good worker who leaves out at 4 a.m. to come to Port of Spain for an 8 o'clock job, then leaves work at 5, 6 p.m. to get home, that your efforts are not recognized. We want to tell you, as one politician told another in the parliament, to shut your stink mouth. I want to say that to you this morning. Every time you seem to speak foul language to hurt and denigrate people. Shut your stink mouth this morning. Shut up.
Guyana's opposition is accusing the government of committing a criminal act by delaying general elections. The country's election commission has requested time to prepare for the elections. The opposition said it won't support the holding of elections later than September 2019, but the president is insisting that the voters list is first cleansed through new house-to-house registration.
The commissioners at GCOM, particularly a particular group, the government commissioners and the former chairman, how they not just abdicated their responsibility, I believe committed a criminal act by not preparing for elections since December 21st last year. That much of what they're doing would be illegal. In fact, most of what they're doing, because the government is unconstitutional. So we have, in another part of the world, this would be described as a dictatorship. In another part of the world, we have been a bit more generous in saying it's unconstitutional rule. But what you have had here is a coup d'etat.
In other news, the University of Havana, Cuba has conducted a research and conservation project of sea turtles in the Guanahaca-Bibes Peninsula since 1998. While the project was started by students, nowadays it involves local community members. Let's take a look.
This is where the last rays of sunshine say goodbye to the island at the end of the day. Soon darkness envelops Cuba's last frontier, and the lighthouse will be turned on to light the way for the navigators of the night. But in the darkness, a small miracle is taking place here on the white beaches of Cabo de San Antonio. Sea turtles arrive to the peninsula to lay down their eggs. We're at the Caleta del Piojo beach, where scientists monitor sea turtle breeding.
We have been waiting since 8 o'clock. It's now 10. A green sea turtle arrived and dug a hole where her eggs will be incubated. I put my hand down there and she laid about 112 little eggs that look just like ping-pong balls.
Mirelli continues counting the eggs, while others measure the mother turtle and also tag her, so later anyone in Cuba and around the world can identify her.
I sacrifice part of my vacation to help since these animals are in danger of extinction, and also because I like to assist with the work of these people. They help them instead of killing them like others do. I would like the turtles to survive, and that's why I'm here to take care of them.
The main turtle specialist of the national park in the Guanahaca-Bibes Peninsula explains that this region has the highest sea turtle reproduction rates in Cuba, while on the rest of the island, only about 80% of the eggs hatch. Here, about 85% of eggs hatch successfully.
She will only close the nest when she considers that there are no threats, and then she will return to the sea. But as long as she can see us here with our lights, she will stay, because she thinks we are a threat to her eggs.
Close to the nest, a group of young people also joined to watch over this unique moment. But they monitor the nest from a distance to cause the least amount of disturbance as possible.
Right now it's 1:45 and we have to stay until 5 in the morning monitoring the turtles. Today 3 turtles arrived. 2 of them laid eggs, but one left without doing anything. One laid 125, while the other 98.
After your first time, you just have to keep coming back, because this is an incredible experience. To see them leave the sea, the work they put into laying their eggs, and we are also here to protect them from poaching. So we are also contributing to their conservation.
Research shows that this peninsula is a highly preferred nesting site for green loggerhead and hawksbill sea turtles. And lucky for them, the locals are happy to dedicate their nights to guard these ancient creatures of the sea.
Fabiola López, Telesur, Península de Guanacavives, Pinar del Río, Cuba.
After the break, we take a look at the protests ahead of the G7 summit in France. Don't touch that remote.
Enjoy the best content in spaces where you will discover new perspectives, innovation, well-being, conservation, equity, traditions. A wide variety of contents that you will find on Telesur, the news source of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Citizens in Jammu and Kashmir have vowed to continue demonstrating to demand that India restore the region's special status. Thousands took to the streets protesting against India's decision to strip Kashmir of its semi-autonomous status. At least 152 people have been hurt by tear gas and pellets since security forces launched a sweeping crackdown on demonstrators.
We want to live in a peaceful manner. We want to solve the problems in a peaceful manner. But the Indian government has militarized this area. They are suppressing us. They are pressuring us. But we want to say that Kashmiris have never bowed down in front of military force, and we will never do that.
Shifting gears now, the World Health Organization has expressed concern at the detection of new Ebola cases in areas outside the current epicenters. The health agency's head of emergency response, Dr. Michael Ryan, said the trend is likely to reverse the progress achieved in containing the outbreak in the hotspots of Butembo, Beni, and Goma. He pointed out that the latest cases include that of a woman in her 70s in a remote village far away from any of the epicenters. The woman has no history of travel or contact with any outsiders.
Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen worrying extensions of the disease. You will all have seen that we've had a cluster of cases in Moenga to the south of Bukavu. We've had a case in Pinga, which is a very difficult and inaccessible area to the northeast of Goma. In Pinga, to the northeast of Goma, which is still part of the overall Goma zone, we've had one confirmed case. The challenge in this case is that this case has no apparent epidemiologic links to other cases, and no recent travel outside or visitors from outside. So this case is a little bit of an outlier. And we've been working very hard to identify a possible source of infection, and we obviously need to ensure that we haven't had another spillover from the forest or from a zoonotic or animal source, and that's currently under investigation, and there's further testing going on and genetic sequencing.
Police in Tunisia have arrested media magnate and presidential candidate for the fourth upcoming presidential elections, Nabil Karul, on money laundering charges. The arrest comes after a judge issued arrest warrants for Karul and his brother. A spokesperson for Karul's party said the arrest was a politically motivated ploy to keep him out of the presidential race. However, a government representative has said the arrest is a judicial matter and has nothing to do with politics. Algerians have returned to the streets, reiterating their demands for the removal of the ruling elite. Crowds marched in the streets for the 27th consecutive week. The day also marked the 7th month since demonstrations began. They are demanding the resignation of the army chief, Ahmed Gaid Salah, who has emerged as the key power broker since President Abdelaziz Bouteflika resigned in April in the face of mass protests.
I am addressing the government. If you really want to find a real solution for Algeria, you must rely on the people who are in the street, the real representatives of the Algerian people. But using this panel is a very bad solution.
Protesters in Biarritz have said that while the G7 meeting ostensibly serves to fight inequality, global leaders are contributing to it through neoliberal policies that widen the wealth gap. The head of Oxfam France, Cécile Duflot, highlighted taxation benefiting the richest people in the country.
The G7 leaders can already carry out actions at their level in their countries. It's the case in France. The tax policy chosen by Emmanuel Macron has benefited the wealthiest 1% of the population to the detriment of the poorest 10%. So here we see that typically we are dealing with something that touches the perimeter of each country. It's also the case in the United States. We clearly see that the choices made are choices that inflame inequalities in the United States. But globally, through imposing minimal taxes on companies, we can make sure we fight against tax evasion, to give to southern countries fiscal resources that they have a right to and which allow them to fund public services, to have basic public services like health and education. It is what's essential in fighting against inequality.
More than 850 migrants have died while trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea since the beginning of 2019. This is according to the latest report released by the United Nations International Organization for Migration. The report shows that migrant deaths on the Mediterranean this year account for 50% of all deaths of migrants in transit across the world.
And the rescue went reasonably.
The Ocean Viking ship, which has been drifting in the Mediterranean for 2 weeks with 356 rescued migrants on board, has been given the green light to dock in Malta. Port access was granted after 6 EU countries reached an agreement. As a result, Germany, Portugal, Romania, Luxembourg, France and Ireland will take in the migrants on board the Norwegian flagged ship. That brings us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories, as always, on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.
Esta es una historia bastante complicada, tiene muchos puntos oscuros.
Lo matan agentes del gobierno norteamericano.
Pues tuvieron que idear un plan maestro.
Ellos mismos se limpiaron las manos de sangre.
La versión que se ha dado no corresponde a la realidad. Y este fue.
Discover the cultural diversity that defines a continent.